So let's go on. Okay, back to CAD drawings. Not my favorite thing, but they are very, very practical. There are many CAD programs you can use. I use the most popular, which is, I've forgotten its name, MiniCAD. No, it used to be called MiniCAD. It's called Vectorworks. Yeah, I started with MiniCAD version 4 in 1990. And yeah, and then it got bought out by another company, Nemeshek, and now it's Vectorworks. I think I'm using Vectorworks 2013. But this is the first CAD drawing I ever really used to demonstrate an impossible idea. This is for Yes, and what I wanted to do was build a ramp system, and that was determined by John Anderson. I'm not sure if you know who, well, you know who Yes is, but this is their physicality. Chris Squire is 6'3", and then on the other side was Trevor Rabin. He's 6'3" too. And then in the middle there's John Anderson. He's 5'5". Well, officially he's 5'7". But and he wanted down here, and this is the brief from the artist. I won't do his voice because he sounds like Mickey Mouse. He's a very funny guy, actually. Well, I find him funny. I don't think he thinks he's funny. Anyway, he wanted a pair of steps right at his microphone so he could step up to his now 6-foot person microphone. He wanted to add 14 inches with 2 steps, which is actually the height of your ordinary staircase. So I'm thinking, wow, that's going to be weird. He walks down stage. He's between these two monumental, towering people, and then he steps up to his microphone. He wanted to step up on a box. So I put to him that people don't, I explained to him some stagecraft. The up and down stage is not, it doesn't register. Nobody really sees people moving up and down stage. They see people moving left and right. That's huge. But the up and down stage, it hardly registers. So I built him a ramp in the middle. That was the first thing I designed, was that ramp. So John, when you're feeling a little overpowered by the tall guys, just walk backwards, still singing, and you'll just... He spent most of his time right there, because there he was 2 inches taller than the other guys. He spent a lot of time up here too, but he rarely came down here. He'd finish a song or start a song right there, but he spent most of his time there, and it was deliberate. We tried him, we made boxes, we made ramps, we had him stand on it, we made cardboard tubes. Good piece of material, by the way. Cardboard tubes for making concrete forms. You know, you can buy them in building shops. Really, really cheap. And you can cut them into interesting angles. And we used to have some, yeah, there's a couple of ex-students of mine here, and we used to use them for simulating people. You just put them there, and instead of having a stand-in, you just light the cardboard tube, the people height. And you can get them up to 42 inches wide, all the way down to 1/4 of an inch. They stow inside each other too. They're really kind of interesting. Anyway, we used cardboard tubes to simulate the 2 other musicians at their height, and he just found, oh, this is perfect. And we changed the angle of the ramp, and it's all done with planks and bricks, and we just got him involved. And he said, this is the place I want to be. And we measured it, and that was exactly there. He actually spent more time behind it, but that was where it was. And that determined the height, the depth, because I really didn't want to get above a particular angle. I think we used 7 degrees for the ramp. And the same with this, that just all fell in. The hexagonals were just risers with bar metal grating. The whole stage deck was made out of bar metal grating. You'll see that in a moment. And then up here, these 3 hexagonals hung on 3 motors, 3 chains. The point of 3 is you can make the whole thing gimbal, rotate. And in the middle was a 4th motor with a very heavy weight. There it is. This is rubber bungee, ordinary stuff. I got it from the Rubber Bungee Corporation. That's their name. This is particular bungee. Most bungee is 100%. What they call 100% is regular stretchy bungee. This is 250%, meaning it's 1.5 times extra stretchy. The lights in the middle here weren't actually there because I wanted those lights there. Those lights were the heaviest lights I could find, because the 4th motor would lower it down. You can see here, this is actually in a concave shape, Same here. This one is pulled up on the motor and it's actually causing a convex shape. So between the 3 gimbalings and height raising and lowerings and angle changing and the shape changer as well, this was a really interesting rig. You can see here's his place right here. This is all bar metal grating. So, and these are Mark V Verilites. They had a little socket cut into the metal. And this is all bar metal grating. All the speaker stuff was underneath, and technical world was underneath. There was a little hatch for the keyboard tech to pop up through. Same with drums. And they had whole little hideaways under there. And what I had done there, and this is a real simple and affordable gag, is I had little egg strobes. You'll find these. Actually, I used American DJ egg strobes. You remember those little egg things with a little knob on the side? Well, they're the expensive ones. Get the ones without the knob, and they just a random flash. And I used festoon wire and little adder taps kind of thing. You know what an adder tap is? It's a little thing that clamps around the wire, and 2 little prongs pierce the cable, and now it's a connection. And we had I actually had 100 of them. It was an exact number. And we just clipped them up with ordinary wooden clothes pegs. We bought those in a supermarket. And we just daisy chained them all around the whole thing. And the first thing happened was house lights went on, these all came on. And the first thing they all do is they all fire together. And then they get jumbled up and random, and it just looked like paparazzi. But it was all shining on the bright aluminum metal, lots of reflections and glares. That's a real cheap gag. I expect to see this all next year, by the way.
Did you have them underneath the grid or on top?
No, underneath. The whole, yeah, because it was very bright, much more brighter underneath, but that didn't matter because enough was coming out and it was lighting an object. It was lighting the shiny metal that it was shining past. And so you saw the hot spot, but you also saw the flash on the reflective metal. So it kind of, in a way, the metal was the reflector and therefore made it a good object to be. That was a great start. House lights off, bang, all these, and it was, whoom, one big pop. And then suddenly it all jumbled up, and the randomness became more erratic. And that was the beginning. And we left that for about 3 minutes in darkness and nothing else. And then they started this drone, and now the audio is getting involved. And the showmanship aspect of that is just stand still as long as possible. The best person who ever did that was Michael Jackson. He came up through the floor. That's called a kicker. Basically, that works with, there's a bunch of very heavy weights that drop, that pull the platform up. He flew up in the air, he landed, and then he stood there for 10 minutes. He stood there in this single pose for 10 minutes. And he was high backlit and a little bit of smoke, and that was it. And the crowd went crazy. That's unbelievable how he did that over here.
A question, a little off topic, but on topic with this complex setup. Do you find that on day one of a show or a tour, that there's always still, no matter when the show starts, you never have enough time? Or do you find yourself...
There's never enough time. No, you're right.
Okay. I don't know if I was alone in that.
No, actually, in a way, it's a healthy thing. Well, not day one. You really have an ambition, and it's huge. You'll never achieve, unless you get months and months of rehearsals. Well, Phil Collins, we rehearsed for 4 months. And I had 9 months of construction period before that.
Wow.
That was a serious job. We'll come to that too. But no, expect it to be, you just have to have something that's acceptable for everything. And then polish those important moments. And it's an organic thing, a lighting design, I think. And it is to your advantage, because as you go through the tour or whatever production you're doing, you start, you'll have more ideas with all the bells and whistles happening around you. You'll have inspirations. I know what I'm going to do. So the next day you finish your focus, you'll just build that little sequence in there. And it's stress-free because you're just doing a little package. And you can really enhance a show to the very end. In fact, my story for Phil Collins, I might as well tell now, we did 127 shows in 9 months, went around the world twice. And it was in Madison Square Garden, and it was a pay-to-view TV shoot. And the last day, I love it. And there were a couple of little adjustments I had to make, intensity-wise, mostly for camera benefit. And then there was one song that had been bothering me, so I changed the whole thing. And Phil had this bad habit of writing notes he's sitting at the piano and he'll write a note, and everybody goes, oh, I hope that's not for me. Because whoever the note was about got summoned afterwards and had to go and explain yourself or something. So he wrote a note right in the middle of the show. No, anyway, it was for me, and he said, did you change that song? I said, I did. He said, why? It's the last show. I said, I was bored. Oh, good for you. I hope that would show up in my little bonus packet, but you never know. Anyway, that's yes. And we're very close to all right, I'll go to this next bit. So my impression, this is a CAD drawing. This is the way I would show this. This is artistic. This is creative. It stimulates the imagination. You've seen this before. This was the big hand raising on the ELO thing. It's a great gag, actually. It's simple and cheap, and I'll use it again. You're welcome to borrow it. Just don't give it back. And there's a great position for carrying lights. I mean, these are 20 foot tall. But this is the way I would show this. I go, oh, I get it. And it all starts, and oh, yeah, I get it. Or I could show it like this. Duh. It's sterile. And that doesn't look like the artist. The previous, it's the imagination thing. The audience has got one. Your clients have got one. And whether they use it or not, it's partly your function to get them to use it and see what's not there. Imagine what's not there. Suggestion is much better than description. This is description. The previous is So I'll just go through this whole sequence of these. This is a really great shape. Curves, so you can rent them. This truss is sitting in everybody's workshop because nobody rents curved truss. It's there for you. And it really works well. People use truss architecturally. They light it up. We've got a lot of lit truss toners. It's an object to light. It's funny, actually. People put up truss and they went, oh, look, we can light it as well. That should be your first thought. I can light this stuff. Or I don't want to see it at all. Personally, I think truss is rather boring in the horizontal linear. But so therefore, I like to either color it up with drapes or just have it black. But most truss nowadays comes alumina. And you can just make shapes using short straights and curves. They don't have to be a perfect radius. You can actually accelerate the radius from straight and ease it into a greater. Curves are a rather nice shape. It's the simplest of all geometry. This is, I never did this. This is kind of a variation on a theme. I'll show you the animation for this later, but these were escalator type stairs. They lowered down. That's a parallelogram. There's double levers that allows the steps to become flat. When it was up, it was flat. When it was down, it was stairs. Just like the escalators on underground trains and so on. These were little curves. This was the drum riser that goes up and down. This is an edge. This is quite modern, actually. These would all be little LED tiles. Now, this is in the extended position, but when it was down, those 5 panels would actually become one big LED area. The fronts of everything was LEDs. I've got a lot of LED stuff to show you. And there it is. Why do drummers do that? Because they can. That's it. There's no reason for drummers going up and down. They want to be part of it, so they always end up with, this is always, nobody asks for this except for the drummer. I want to go up in the air. And then you come down. Nobody thinks the second part, which is, and then you come down, which is, theatrically, that's a bit of an anticlimax. And so you have to make something of the down as well as the up. And the way I've always done that is use a lot of smoke, make a big pyro event out of it, and almost shoot him down. I mean, just coming down is, we knew it was going to do that, but do it in a way that nobody knew we were going to do it. This is stagecraft stuff. And that's really the best thing you can ever take away from here is just simple tricks of the trade that cost nothing. Because you really are going to be screwed if you don't. Here's the ego ramps. These are actually big platforms. Here's the ramp. Here's a little, poser place. And this is for arenas. Well, there's a place of egress here and a place of egress. Exits, and there's the dasher wall all around here. That's where the ice would be. The audience is here, but there is also an exit left and right of the stage. So actually, these are bridges over that, and you create a tunnel and put your own exit sign up. And The fire marshal's happy with that. Flame and exit. Yeah, this I actually designed for Eddie Van Halen. I used to work for Sammy Hagar, who's actually quite a really nice guy. And he was always trying to get me to do stuff for Van Halen. But whatever I suggested, Alex Van Halen, the drummer, didn't want, because he didn't like Sammy and I came from Sammy's camp. This is politics you can't surmount, you know. Shame, but hey, I did all this, mostly because Sammy asked me to. And that was it. And the reason this was here was Eddie Van Halen had just recently had some kind of surgery on his hip and he couldn't step up steps. So I put an elevator in for him that also had steps. And oh, okay. The curve again, I'm going to stop after this. The next best way of representing something is models. Little balsa wood models, cardboard, print. There's great ways of doing it. The technology for making models is real simple. All you need is a steel rule and a really sharp scalpel. And this is a 1/2-inch scale model of 5-foot lengths of truss with a 15-inch plate that most lighting companies will make for you if you're going to have a tour production. They're real simple to make. You know, the manufacturers of the truss will make it. I bet you'd make it here, wouldn't you, Eric?
Sure.
Yeah, it's straight. It's just 2 plates with a little spacer and a solid weld there. You put it between the 5-foot sections of ordinary truss, or 8 or whatever, but it gives it a little kick. And these are just little outriggers so it can freestand. It doesn't have to freestand. You could hang it from there and just stand it up, and then the curve would be that way. Or you could set it back. But that's a great place for footlights, side lights. This works real well. Side lights are a great. If you were to put lights up, where would you you're designing lights, where would you put your first lights?
High side.
High side?
High side.
You come from ballet? That's a dance trick. Yeah, I'd consider high side before I've considered overhead front, because 2 lights from high side can light both sides of the nose, and that's exactly what the front does. Front's a difficult place because it's quite often over the seats. It's a key light place. It's really needed for television. But I'd start with my side lights, and this is kind of cosmetic. It's a little architectural. And then I'd start, the second place I put lights is behind. Again, television really, really needs that light. That light is important for that camera, because otherwise I wouldn't have any nice shape. I'd be a 2-dimensional cutout, which I am not. So these are things you can get done. These are things, if you're a welder, you can do. You know somebody who will produce this. If you're running a nightclub, these are great shapes. You can bolt them to the wall. You can have them on you can turn it over. You can put a platform on that part, put that whole side, that point and that point on the deck. Now you've got a small arch. You could increase that 15 degrees to 20 degrees, say. Now you've got a bigger, steeper arch. These are really useful things, but the point of that and that is you'll more than likely get it as a rental, not as a purchase. Because it's a small thing, it didn't cost that much, and the rental guys go, well, maybe, yeah, that looked good. Maybe we should keep them on our shelf. Maybe 20 years later he's never used them, but that's not your problem. Or actually, it's to your advantage. Nobody's used my 15-degree plates. Oh, I think I'll use those again. And you know where to go. But yeah, again, that's a development thing with personal attachment to your suppliers. The more business you do with your suppliers, the more they'll do for you. And they'll be more likely to provide anything you ask because you keep coming back. And everyone gets a style, and everybody starts using their same old tools. It's a bad habit, but we'll cover that. So shall we have a little break now? I could do with it.